Development is taking a while. And for too many months, I was stuck creating the same systems, over and over and over again. But that changes now. Long before I became a game developer, I saw a video on YouTube about Notch, the creator of Minecraft, doing some behind the scenes coding, and he did something that fascinated me. And ever since I started developing games, I had always intended to create something like he did, but there were two things stopping me. The projects I worked on never felt like they needed it, and I was too inexperienced to do it efficiently. So what did he do?
Since you're in debug mode, you can just change the code and just instantly changes, which is very, very efficient. Yeah, I could do anything. We can make arrows explode when they hit the ground instead. Okay, that worked. Yep, that crashed the game.
It might not seem like this is a big deal or this is the answer to all of game dev's biggest questions, because it's not. But the time that goes into creating a system like this will massively outweigh all the time that goes into unnecessary testing. How do I know? Because I did it. The game I'm making is an ancient Greek-themed tower defense game where you control a selection of heroes. There'll be a campaign or story mode, but there'll also be the free-to-play mode as well, which is more of a survive as long as you can experience. There are a bunch of characters and classes that I have planned, and this new system will help rapidly prototype, create, test, and balance all of the character designs. But before I jump into what I've done with this new system, to give you a better perspective, I'll run you through the workflow that I had up until this point of development. Say I wanted to test out a new ability I was working on. Let's keep it simple and just say fire rate. I would first have to find the hero in my project folder, add the fire rate ability, start the game, reset the player data so that the hero would be updated to contain the new data, start a new game, wait for the map to be generated, place the hero somewhere on the map, press play, and wait for the enemies to get in range. And see how the fire interacts with it only then. 9 steps, which doesn't take into account uncontrollable variables. Maybe the enemy dies too quickly so I can't actually see how the fire rate looks, or maybe I forgot to reset the player data so the new ability doesn't take effect. There were a lot of random things that could happen, and I fully understood that this was a bad system even while testing, but while I was working on the extremely basic systems of the game, this was sufficient enough to get me through it. But as the project progressed, I'm now at a state where this system is sinking too much time to test. And from that realization came the implementation of my fully working editor sandbox mode. I've overridden a lot of the code to now support editor tools, so things like money or unlock states will be ignored if I'm in the sandbox. The sandbox also has this feature up here, which allows me to place enemies at any path in the map. And I know only one enemy at the moment, but I'm prioritizing the design of the heroes first. Now that you can see the new system, I'll take you through the revised workflow and how I'm able to rapidly prototype, test, and design new abilities and new characters. 1. You start the game, enable the editor mode, start a new match. It will always load a map based off a seed, so anytime I press play, this exact map will load, spawn enemies in positions that I want, spawn heroes in positions that I want. Now, from here, I can set the wave to be active or inactive at any point, and depending on which state it's in will determine if the hero can attack. For changing values of abilities, I just have to select the hero in the hierarchy, find their in-game properties in the inspector, update the values for the ability, say something like fire rate, and set the game state back to active to see immediate changes. 5 steps. 5 steps opposed to the 9 that I had before, while guaranteeing that every time I press play, even if I've forgotten to include something, I can still test it seamlessly. Now this system is completely modular as well, meaning I'm also able to utilize a drag and drop system for testing new abilities. If I want to give the hero an ability, for example, I have an AoE one, where on landing, the projectile will explode, I just have to drag in the ability into the character's in-game property and set the game state to active. Again, immediate changes. I'm also able to visually test exactly how the projectile's trajectory looks in the game through this editor. We can leave the state to active so you can see it running simultaneously, and if we again navigate to the hero's in-game properties, find the animation curves and change it, we can see that immediately reflected in our little editor. Of course though, with every ability or upgrade that I come up with, there is a backend system through code that I need to write to handle it. However, being a modular system, it doesn't require me to add new scripts. There's certain parts of the code that could handle different aspects of the game. For example, I have status effects in the game, so that enemies can get burnt or slowed, but I can easily add a new status effect by simply defining it as a status effect. I can then go into the code where status effects exist, check what type it is, and add the expected behavior. And just like that, it'll work. I can give the character the ability, test it out in the game, and you can see it take effect immediately. Now, to some of the devs or sharp-minded people that might be watching and wondering, what happens if I don't give the hero a specific value or ability and the code tries to use it? For example, what if they have the ability to shoot a projectile, but they don't have the ammo ability defined in their loadout? Well, the game will try to use it, but there's always a default value for different properties that will be returned even if the character doesn't have it actually defined. I have the script for finding, retrieving, and defining characters' in-game data, and in this method here, you can see that it'll try and retrieve it, and if it's unsuccessful, then it will return a different value. This way, keeping with the modular style, things don't necessarily always need to be defined by the object, but they can all share the same code to ensure all the behaviors synergize and operate correctly. Basically, my workflow for testing is completely controlled and streamlined. I can see everything I need to see, test everything I need to test, all through this editor. Aside from all the balancing and visuals, it's also a really good way for me to ensure that behaviors in the game on the code side are all responding the way that they should be. For example, colliders are colliding and projectiles are projectiling. Literally everything, so that when it comes time for me to start figuring out specific upgrades or paths for different characters, I can play around with the values in the editor to find what would be suitable. And from there, I'm able to rapidly put together characters that are able to be upgraded in a way that I know will be consistent and, well, just work. Anyway, that's the devlog for this week. I hope you guys enjoyed seeing my workflow and design for this. Going forward, it's going to be largely designing the characters, their paths, and the new enemies, so there may be some time between this devlog and the next one, but I will try and keep as active as possible. If you're enjoying these videos or this game, then my Discord, which will be linked in the description of this video, will be the best way to stay up to date as I'm constantly sending videos and updates of this game through there. I want to give a special thank you as well for getting the channel to 3,000 subscribers. It feels incredible to be able to say that, and it really motivates me to keep working on content for all of you. I have some really great videos planned for the next few weeks, so if you haven't already, consider subscribing to the channel to keep up to date with all of it. Otherwise, as always, you guys are all incredible, and I can't thank you enough for the support I've received so far. Thanks again for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next video.